Swarm the 402. Welcome to the Nebraska Hawkeyes. These guys are brave. They're Hawkeyes living in enemy territory. Listen, these guys are way past their prime, but they're still Hawkeyes. They're spreading the Hawkeye hype to all of Nebraska. The frost advisory is canceled. Cornhuskers, more like corn suckers. Are you ready for this podcast? Let's go Hawks!
All right, welcome back to the Nebraska Hawks Nest, your Hawkeye oasis located in a nasty little Nebraska desert. Today marks our very first episode of our Swarm the 402 podcast. Joining us today, the wise guy, Jerry Weiss. Jerry, how's it going, buddy?
Yeah, it's going phenomenal, Adam.
Did you like my British accent there? And
no, I did not. No, I did not. But let's not be negative. We're here to be positive and Swarm the 402. And we got the eye candy known as Matty Ice down there.
Girls, keep it together. Keep it together, girls. He's married.
Like I have a chance anymore.
He's already freezing up. This is his first time. Your face didn't move there for like a solid 5 seconds.
No.
Old Iowa farmhouse, go Hawks.
Fiber to the home out here, though. I'm living in God's country.
That must be some weak fiber. You'll freeze up like this when you're talking, and then you'll be the same for like a minute. So I say that, and then the same thing happens to me 5 minutes later because it's well documented the internet issues I have out here. Jerry likes to make fun of it because I live out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, they still got telegraph converters. One of these days they'll upgrade to the overhead power phone lines.
So since it's our first episode, we're going to just kind of give a little bit of a base of everything that we're going to be doing on this podcast. We've been primarily an interview-based podcast from the very beginning, and at the rate that we're going, I think we're going to run out of people to interview at some point. So we're going to be sprinkling in the Swarm the 402 podcast, where we're going to be tackling college football topics, probably some pop culture stuff. You're going to get to know way too much about all three of us, which I apologize in advance. Our sole purpose in life initially was to spread the Hawkeye beloved culture to all of Nebraska and Western Iowa. Too many people told us they felt alone out here in Nebraska, so we wanted to do everything we could to bring people together. That love is spread all across the country, so we're just not Nebraska exclusive now. We're all over the place, right, guys?
Right. Yeah, I'm in Northwest Iowa, so I'm representing the state over here.
Yeah. So I wanted to just to start out at the beginning, sorry to cut you off, Jerry. We're going to start out with you, Jerry, real quick. Tell us a little bit about just, with it being our first episode doing this, what got you to become a Hawkeye fan? What really sparked your fandom and got you to be so passionate about the Hawkeyes?
Well, we joke about it on the podcast a lot about our ages, but, I'm old enough that I predated the internet and spent a lot of my formative years growing up in a little town north of the Quad Cities, Eldridge. And, when you're only an hour out of the Iowa City area, the newspaper, TV, and every limited media, it was all Hawkeyes, and that's what you grew up with. And I went to my first game. I still got the program, 1979, the final game against Michigan State, and I don't know. From that point on, it was just all Iowa all the time. And, it just grew from there. So we've talked about it on previous podcasts as well. You moved to Nebraska and they all think that you're going to become a Husker fan. I moved here 13 years ago, back when they were a little bit more formidable. And no, it just makes you a stronger Hawkeye fan. It's like those roots run deep. So
I've seen it break people, and a weaker man would have become a Husker fan. And I'm sorry if this offends anybody that grew up in the state of Iowa and then moved to Nebraska and became a Husker fan. I have absolutely zero respect for you as a sports fan. So as a sports fan, now we can be cool outside of the sports realm, but I have no respect for you. You got to stay strong. And, that's what Jerry did.
Just to put a finish on that, when you grew up in Eastern Iowa, we moved to Des Moines when I was about junior high age in the early 80s. And that was the first time I never even realized Iowa State fans existed. I mean, everything was Iowa at the time. And I'll never forget running into an Iowa State fan when we moved first time at school and thought, wow, they actually do exist. It was a figment of the imagination before that. So anyway,
they drive their fandom through enrollment at the university. So that helps out a lot.
Well,
so Matt, go ahead.
You can't be a fan unless you go to school there. So
that's their rule. So, that's what I always hear. Well, people that are Hawkeye fans are just Hawkeye fans, but they have people that are Cyclone fans actually went to Iowa State. So just because you didn't go to Iowa doesn't mean you're not a diehard Hawk. And like Matt and I have had conversations a lot of times that I think a lot of the best Hawkeye fans are people that didn't go there. It seems that a lot of people that are alumni don't seem to have the passion. And I'm not talking about everybody, there's always exceptions all the time. But as a whole, just my experience personally, it's the people that didn't necessarily go to the University of Iowa that are the biggest fans. And, that would be Matt. Matt's a Wayne State College grad. And Matt, tell us a little bit about how you became a huge Hawkeye fan growing up.
I guess I grew up with it. My grandpa always had it on. I had zero interest of sports when I was in elementary. I mean, I played some through elementary, through junior high and high school. Just kind of, it was always there. I was always in Iowa a lot, so it wasn't like a big piece of a piece of the pie of what I was caring about at the time. But it seemed like as I grew older and went to college, and then I liked the Hawkeyes ever since, all through Wayne. Going to Wayne State College there. I moved to Sioux City, and then Adam and I started watching games together, and it just kind of blew up from there. But I ended up, my first game that I went to with one of my high school best friends, that was probably 20 years ago. But so I've been to games earlier on, and now we go consistently. But
yeah,
it's just what I love.
I would say there's that one person in most fans' lives that really sparks that passionate fandom of the Hawkeyes or any other team. And I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I feel like I injected that addiction into Matt. Matt was a fan, but then when we started to become friends, I kind of turned him to a super fan.
Yeah.
And, so that's when it all started.
2010 magical season together blew it up.
Yeah. There were many margaritas and Miller Lights consumed that season, and took a few years off our life, but it was worth it.
I guess technically wasn't that the 2009 season, because we went to the Orange Bowl in 2010. So my bad on that.
Yeah, it was.
It was fun.
When you get this old, the years just bleed together.
They do. It's hard to keep them straight.
So, Adam, let's turnabout's fair play. You've been featured Big Ten treasure hunter. You are the Nebraska Hawks Nest. That's where you are located right now. What was it that got you going in your Iowa fandom?
Well, we are the Nebraska Hawks Nest. We're a team, and that's kind of stuff isn't fun unless you can share it with people you care about and have fun with, and share your fandom. The very beginning of it started out, I would say my grandparents really got me hooked. They had season tickets for a really long time. And about once, maybe if I was lucky, twice a year, they'd take me along to a game. And, I'm going to sound like a reference against super HGTV here, but like the fall weather outside of the stadium, like playing catch out, tailgating, and then going into the game, like the whole entire experience, I was just hooked. I'm like, this is the coolest thing in the world. Like Kinnick Stadium is just jaw-droppingly cool. I remember one of the first times I went, my dad was a high school football coach. He got us a tour of the practice bubble that they used to play in before their new practice facility. And you walk in the door and your ears popped. Yeah, and I was just like, and back then I'm like, geez, this thing is super cool. We have a indoor practice facility that Hayden Fry pushed for. And I would say the other thing that really, fed into that was going to the Iowa basketball camp every year as a kid. My grandparents paid for that, and I had a passion for playing basketball growing up. And so, I got to spend time around Coach Dr. Tom Davis, AC Earl, Russ Millard, Val Barnes. Chris Street was there too. A lot of the Hawkeye legends during a big time Hawkeye basketball, Wade Looking Bill. And I just idolized those guys. Those guys were like gods to me. So I really started out more of a Hawkeye basketball fan initially. And then I grew to become, more of a football fan as the years went on. And then, later in my life too, into my 30s, more and more of a wrestling fan and just Hawkeye sports in general. So,
yeah, and it's kind of funny when you live here in the enemy territory. It's funny how it just drives even like you were talking about even more, excitement over a lot of maybe other sports that you probably weren't paying attention to before. But, the bottom line is you and Matt were talking about with you guys. I always think back to the Daniel Stern line in City Slickers for anybody that can remember that movie. But when we talked about baseball and him and his dad, and he's like, it was the one commonality we had to talk about. And it's amazing how, like with us, the Hawkeyes have brought you and I and Matt together and gotten to know each other quite a bit because of it. And it's funny for me to think about how the Iowa fandom, even with Husker fans, the Iowa fandom is basically that one thing that's, brought it together. And, you can look back and see how that started conversations, if nothing else, just being known for that over here. So, that's what this is all about. And it's having fun. And, it's as we talked about with Keith Murphy, it's all about sports hate. It's not about hate. So,
absolutely. We say sometimes we hate Nebraska and stuff. I wouldn't really hate anybody. It's more sports hate than anything. And it just, makes the rivalry more fun when you talk a little smack here and there. So,
well, and it's a lot. It's a lot of fun to go back and forth with the neighbors as long as you keep it in perspective. So,
yeah, absolutely. So keeping things in perspective, we had an article that dropped within the last few weeks here that I wanted us to discuss on here by the Sporting News. In this PC world that we live in right now, the cancel culture seems like we're evaluating about everything that we do anymore, and it's offending somebody and someone has an issue with it. So I'm hoping at some point we hit the reset button and people just have a little bit more of a sense of humor about things in life. I know this stuff drives Matt nuts, so I'm hitting a hot topic button with him. It is for me too. And what we're going to start out talking about is the article is the top 5 most offensive mascots in college sports by the Sporting News. So we're going to actually just cover the top 5 here, just out of respect for time. People don't want to hear us blabber our gums that long. So we're going to start out right here at number 5. This is my favorite because I think this is something kids have nightmares about if they see it. Now, this is the mascot at Oklahoma State, Pistol Pete. That face only a mother could love. I don't know what they were thinking with that thing. I mean, that I could see that. I mean, the head's too damn big to fit in a closet, but I could see that like creeping out like of a room at night in a horror movie, with his little pistols in the air, scaring the heck out of kids. That is a terrifying mascot. Now, is it offensive? I don't find it offensive at all. It makes me laugh. Matt, what are your thoughts when you see Pistol Pete?
I guess I don't know what makes it offensive, what people are even thinking. So I'm in the same page as you are. It's a cowboy. He's got his pistols up. I mean,
I wonder if it's because he has pistols. I mean,
I suppose it's the anti-gun thing, I guess, but
that's why their
hands motioned as a gun, so I can't really see that either.
That's why they had to change the name of the Red River Shootout to the Red River Rivalries. Try to say that 3 times straight. I can't. I have a speech impediment. I feel like I struggle with some of those things. Jerry, what are your thoughts on old Pistol Pete?
Well, there's absolutely no Oklahomans that take pride in being cowboys, so I can understand why it might be offensive to them. So, okay. And if you don't notice the sarcasm in my voice, I apologize, but that was my sarcasm. So
that anyway, is ironic.
I just, and it's just this dropped. I mean, was this a survey or was this, is this a writer's viewpoint or a survey, or do you know?
It is from a writer at the Sporting News, and then he that was a very delicious sounding crack of a beverage there. I must say, wow, that just like shuddered the whole podcast. Is that you, Matt Meyer? Thirsty boy. We're gonna have to like start name dropping some like brands here. Get us some more sponsors on this show.
We should.
All right, go back, Jerry, to what you were saying, because I completely went off on a tangent. And that the shudder of that beer can opening just completely threw me off. Do you even remember? We'll move on. Okay. We're going to move on to number 4 now. Now, this guy, he doesn't really seem to have a name. They just call him the Leprechaun at Notre Dame. Apparently, I'm not sure, with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, the connotation is that it's something to do with drunk Irishmen in a bar getting in fights is what it's tied to. And the university says that that's not the case. It's just, the Fighting Irishmen. You can put, Oregon calls themselves the Fighting Ducks a lot of times. Like, I don't really see what necessarily is so offensive about this mascot either, because I know Irish people don't really care. So I don't know, Jerry, what are your thoughts on the Leprechaun at Notre Dame?
Well, that it's such associated, and I mean, I don't know. I don't really understand any. I don't know of any Irish people that are offended by the Leprechaun. And the reason I was going back asking you about the whether this was a survey or whether this was a writer's perspective, because this goes back. There's an Indy Star article from back in late August talking about there's a survey with a company called Quality Logo that's since been pulled down. And I mean, the Indy Star, it was just kind of like, really, who came up with this list? And ultimately it was a survey. And so then you start to wonder about the parameters, and are we just trying to find news here? It's just, you really start to look at the base of it and say, where, how founded was this? Or, and then if the Sporting News picks it up, was it just somebody trying to rush the press with something to, try to stoke a fire? But I don't know. The Notre Dame mascot's been what it is for years and years and years, and I have yet to hear anybody that's upset about it other than a newspaper article or a magazine article.
I think they like stuff like this because anything that college football fans can debate about, they love it. So, and I don't know, Matt, what are your thoughts on the Leprechaun at Notre Dame?
I was going to say kind of the same along the lines that you said, that the Irish, they're not offended of anything, are they?
Not really. They're pretty chill. Like I've never met an Irish person that wasn't cool. Like, they're all pretty awesome.
Yeah, and if I'm an Irishman and I like to party, I'm going to think that that's freaking awesome as hell, because I'm named after the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I think it's cool that they've used, students from different ethnicities to be the mascot from all over the place, which I think is awesome. Like, you get a little bit of a representation. I think just recently the Leprechaun was African American. Like, there's been all kinds of different races that have represented it. So I think that's pretty cool too. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Matt? I
think that's great. I mean, who cares? You're the Fighting Irish. You're representing your school. It doesn't matter what race you are. You can be a Fighting Irishman.
Yeah, I agree. And guys, whatever your opinions are on this too, make sure you comment. Let us know. Hit obviously, the YouTube stuff. Hit the like and subscribe. Should have said that at the beginning. But let us know what you guys think on this list and what we're talking about. And our opinion's not gospel. We'd like to hear what you guys have to say too.
Definitely not gospel for me.
No. Number 3, this comes into some murkier waters that I don't feel like I know as much about. It's Ville the Warrior from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. So I just think that's cool. I mean, in my opinion, I think that's any mascot that's unique like that, I think is kind of awesome. I haven't really had any conversations with any Hawaiians about what they think about that, whether that's offensive or not. But I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that mascot?
Matt, you go ahead.
Oh, me first again. I doubt anybody from Hawaii that's Hawaiian is offended by this. I got to party with some Hawaiians when I went to visit my cousin.
You did?
Oh man, it was a blast. Those guys are so laid back, and they were just grilling out. Who cares? Come join us, have a beer. I mean, it's probably more of a it probably is more of a pride thing that the University of Hawaii is that mascot.
Yeah.
And if Hawaii, if that nationality is getting money from Hawaii being that mascot, like I know sometimes that happens, But I mean, it's just a bonus for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's going to be that mascot, the University of Hawaii, they're Hawaiian. Like they should be able to get to choose that. So I don't, Jerry, what do you think?
Well, my assumption, looking at this, not really knowing the history of it, but Ville the Warrior is probably Samoan. And when we had our interview with Epi and Nessa, the Samoan people are very proud people. I mean, they've got their own Hall of Fame for their athletes, even. And really, I guess in the bottom line of it, it's really between the Samoans and the University of Hawaii, but I have yet to hear of any really outrage on it. So I don't know. I guess to me, it's celebrating the Hawaiian heritage and the Pacific Islands. So I don't see an issue with it. But again, I'm not privy to all that information. We may have to go back to our good friend Bob Hogue, who's over out that who lived in Hawaii. Maybe he can give us a little bit better opinion on that. So
that's true. That's a good perspective. The Samoan aspect of it. That's pretty cool. So that's just not one I've heard anybody complain about ever. So I haven't heard anyone have any issue with that. Now this one, I dare you to find a cooler mascot than this. Like this guy is so cool. The Aztec Warrior from San Diego State University. Like, look at that, man.
Mm-hmm.
That is cool. Like, look at that. The headwear that he has on, the headgear and everything. Like that might be my favorite mascot of all time. Like Jerry or myself could not pull that off. We would, can you imagine me as pale as I am running around in that costume? I'm
picturing it now, and it's not working.
No.
I was just imagining a big old beer belly hanging out, underneath the decor there.
Hey, I'm working on it.
Bought and paid for that, Jerry.
I was talking about me, Adam. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. You kind of jump quick to the to the quick there, but
because I have one as well. So
well, I don't know. You seem to you kind of I don't know. So
I've been working at it, but I too am 9 months pregnant. So I'm working on taking care of that and trying to get down to like 5 or 6 months pregnant right now. So it's a process. All right, we're gonna move forward here with the number one most offensive mascot. Matt briefly referenced it with the financial aspect of it, but we have Osceola and Renegade. So that would be the horse and the mascot sitting on the horse from Florida State University. Again, I mean, if you've ever seen the pregame when they take the field and throw the burning spear into the 50-yard line, very cool. You can feel the history and heritage behind it. I think it's awesome. The Seminole tribe does give permission to Florida State University to use that name. So I'm sure like if North Dakota was still on here, the Fighting Sioux would probably be number 1 or number 2, but they've switched that now. I think they're the Fighting Hawks now, aren't they? I believe. Yeah, I think they are. The crickets in that response. They're the Fighting Hawks, I'm pretty sure. So what are your guys' opinions on the Florida State mascot?
I'll go first on this one, but I mean, if you do a web search on this, the Seminole Nation and Florida State have had a close relationship, for many, many years. Back in 2005, I believe there was a joint statement release talking about how they were, collaborating together and working together and the mutual respect. And again, I don't know. This just leads me back to believe that this was just some sort of a contrived survey or whatever that just tried to elicit some sort of a response in this environment. But I mean, everything I could find on this, looking back on it, there was no ill will between the Seminole Nation or Florida State. So that's really up to them to make that.
What was that?
That was my text message notification for one of my kids. So
Good
anyway.
night. In our pre-production meeting, we're supposed to get stuff like this taken care of, Jerry.
Well, apparently my silent mode did not work on that, so it overrode it somehow. But anyway, it's all right. It's a little Japanese to make us seem a little more high class.
This is like very culturally rich episode of the Swarm the 402 podcast. And I totally
like topic. The only thing I really have to say on that one is if the Seminole Nation is fine with it, then why should anybody else care?
Yeah. And their intent is to honor it and educate.
It's not a diss to that. It's not a diss to them. It's an honor to them. There's nobody making fun of it. It's really a neat mascot. It's pretty awesome if you look into it.
I could see like how teams like, the Washington Redskins and the Cleveland Indians, stuff like that, how that's offensive. That's good. That Redskins, that's pretty bad. Like
Yeah, it
I think
was.
most people can agree like that needed to go. Like that
Yeah.
needed to go a while back. And they really drug their feet on that, and it became a really bad PR thing for them as long as they took to fix that. I get the tradition and standing behind it, but there's nobody that's going to endorse a name like that. That's a very, racially slang driven name. And I don't know anybody like other than the lifelong Washington Redskin fans that thought that was a good name. And the Cleveland Indians, again, not great. They're going to be changing their name as well. Jerry, what's your thoughts on those?
Well, it is, and there's a lot of things that need to be worked out on it. But I mean, I go back to, for Iowans, I go back to my alma mater, Simpson College. 25 years ago, they realized that the Redmond nickname was highly questionable and possibly offensive, and probably is offensive. And they changed to the Storm. And I mean, that was really at the forefront of, trying to head this off before it became a larger issue.
Yeah.
And, and so, yeah, I mean, there's got to be change that takes place here because, it's, again, we started off the podcast with it being sports fun. And I mean, you don't want to have a lot of, you don't want offensive names like that in nature, tarnishing, what's supposed to be a fun and a pastime. So, I mean, I don't disagree with a lot of these changes that are going on with a lot of the names that you mentioned.
Yeah. And there's been some dumb ones like the Washington Bullets changed their name to the Wizards because they thought the Bullets was that to me is like, okay, you're reaching there. If you want to change your name, just change it. Don't say that, calling yourself the Bullets is like, promoting violence. I thought that was kind of ridiculous. I don't know. Matt, how do you feel about that?
Agree. That's just like Pistol Pete, the Washington Bullets. I mean, if you're offended by guns, I guess, okay, but there's a lot of use. I mean, people are hunting all the time, all around me, all around the Midwest. People do it for sport. People do it for food. Yeah. So there's a lot of different opinions out there on those things, and personally, I don't think they're offensive.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think the difference on this is, you look at the difference between what level of respect and what level of caricature is being used. And I mean, the caricatures are what, is where it becomes questionable as far as, really how necessary is it? So, I mean, that's anything that's really kind of in that realm is really what needs to be under scrutiny, moving forward. So,
I mean, I'm going to start a petition for the next semi-pro team to come out of the state of Iowa to be called the Fighting Matt Myers. I mean, that's what I want.
That's going to get turned down in about 2 seconds.
It's got my vote. All right, guys, we're going to break down real quick here to get your guys' expert picks. You guys watch a lot of college football. So do I. So I don't know what makes the other guys like on ESPN radio. How do they know more than us? You guys watch just as much football as they do. So we're going to break down some of our thoughts and opinions on the games coming up. Now with Iowa, we have Colorado State in Iowa City this weekend. Iowa is a 22.5-point favorite. I didn't realize this until I started doing research. Steve Adazio, the former Boston College head coach, is the coach at Colorado State. Did not realize that, so I thought that was pretty interesting. I really liked him at Boston College. He was a fiery dude. Seemed to get a lot out of his players. Colorado State right now is not a really strong program. Right now, they have a 1-2 record. They beat Toledo, lost to Vanderbilt, and got blown out by South Dakota State by a lot of points. So what are your guys' thoughts on this game? I'm not gonna, steal all the thunder here. Jerry, what do you see happening this weekend? Do you feel like the Hawkeyes are going to cover that spread and win in Kinnick this Saturday?
Well, I like their chances to cover the spread. I mean, Colorado State's been giving up a lot of points their first 3 games, and a lot of yardage, I should say. And, I really think if you look at it, they've been the strongest against the run on the teams they've played. I really think this could be the game if Iowa wants to show off some passing game and for Petrus to break out. This could possibly be it. But I'm also going to note that I am not on the down on Spencer Petrus train like a lot of people are right now. You know, he's 9-2 as a starter. All he's doing is winning. His 2 losses have been against the first 2 games last year that he played as a starter. And he was expected, he put up like 40 and 50 pass attempts those games, which is a totally not Iowa approach to a game. So the only 2 games he lost were games where it was put on his shoulders in his first 2 starts. And I'm sure Brian Ferentz isn't looking back saying, my gosh, why didn't that work? You got to be looking back saying, you know, what did we do that game? Why did we get out of that? And they were still close games. So anyway, but I mean, for the passing game to get out of a funk, I think they've got a good chance this week. But I mean, I still look at us overpowering them. And, you know, I like our chances to cover that spread. So,
all right,
but do not bet. But to our fans, do not bet on my advice. I'm not responsible. That's just one man's opinion.
Don't listen to Jerry. He's got stacks of cash all over the house from betting on college football. He just doesn't want, if you get mad and lose one of the games.
Well, that's why. I still live in Nebraska. I keep losing my money on my thoughts and bets, and now I'm stuck here. I can't come up with the moving money.
I mean, I've listened to a lot of the experts on different media outlets before. They're not very accurate a lot of the time. So and I liked what you were referencing too. I feel like that, you know, Spencer didn't get the benefit of the doubt last year. He didn't get spring ball to prepare, for one, and for two, you come out of the gate with a first-year starter quarterback last season at Spencer Petras, and you're throwing the ball 50 times a game. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. That's not Iowa football to begin with. That's not what we do. We are a run-first offense that sets up play action. We'll throw the ball down the field. Like, we're a balanced offense, and I'm not really sure what we were thinking those first 2 games of the year, but Kirk said it himself. That's not Iowa football. And then going into this season, Spencer's got spring ball. He seems to look less, you know, crazy feet in the pocket. He likes to stutter his feet around when he gets nervous and doesn't know where to go. I feel like he's doing that less and less this year, but I believe he just broke the streak recently for the most amount of attempts throwing the ball without an interception in Iowa football history. So I mean, that's to be noted too. And then also too, you know, if you're watching the game and watching closely, a lot of the receivers aren't getting the separation needed, especially on the long routes downfield, for him to be able to deliver a pass in there for a long completion. So, Jerry, did you have something you wanted to add there?
Well, no, I just, you know, look at the 2 teams they played to start this season. And again, this is his first season in front of crowds. And, you know, it's, you know, you start out with an Indiana, and it was in the friendly confines of Kinnick. But I mean, that's still a tough matchup. And then you look at Iowa State. I mean, they're talking like that was one of the loudest crowds that they've faced, you know, outside of Indianapolis back in 15. And, you know, he's walking into that. And that's only the second crowd he's ever played in front of. And it's the first away crowd he's played in front of. So I don't know. Maybe I'm the eternal optimist, but I'm giving him benefit of the doubt. But again, all he's doing is winning, you know, and when, you know, if you keep winning, and you keep game managing, and you let your running backs, you let that running game take, you know, ultimately for him, it's going to come down to that first game where he's got to try to take the top off of defense where they're loading the box on him. And I think that's going to be the big key is, can he do that? And that goes back to maybe, like you were saying, the happy feet and the confidence level. So
we're definitely not one of those offenses that's really going to try to go out and trick people. But one thing I've noticed, especially this year, and Matt, you kind of tell me what you think on this, but Kent State was on top of about every play we were running. They were right there. We were very predictable. And this MAC program now, granted, they're favored to win the MAC probably this year from what I've seen. They got a really solid team, but they knew what we were going to run, when we were going to run it, and where we were going to go with the ball, and they were on top of us. So, Matt, what do you see happening this weekend against Colorado State? Again, Iowa, 22.5-point favorite. Do you feel like the Hawks are going to cover the spread?
I think that they will. We've done nothing but cover the spread all year long. They keep talking about Colorado State having a big line, both sides, and a good secondary. They got a tight end, good quarterback, but I'm going to put that good quarterback in that one, you know, the best tight end they say is in the country. I've heard. So I think Kirk Ferentz said that yesterday, maybe.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take our linebackers against all of that, and our D line and our secondary, and shut that down. And then against their, Spencer Petras and that offense against their defense, we just find ways every game, no matter what, to always get something done. I mean, I know, like you said, a lot of people are down on Spencer Petras and things aren't going well. And I've said some things. I haven't been real impressed, but there's times that I think, we just played 3 really tough defenses, and we've come out on top, and we've covered the spreads every time, and we've been on we were the underdogs on 2 of the 3, and came out on top and blew everybody's mind away on how much we beat them by on those first 2 for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, we're going to cover the spread. I think this is probably going to be one of the easiest of the 3 we've had so far, and it's going to be a great day to be a Hawkeye again.
We just got to kind of reevaluate everything as Hawk fans. Like I said, we posted a meme on Nebraska Hawks Nest today. We don't want to become like the programs like, Nebraska kind of was in Tennessee, where they were overly critical. Like, we're 3-0. We beat 2 top 20 teams. We're not going to look great. Iowa's never looked great the first 2 or 3 games of the year, and we played really good competition. So I think this is a really good game for Iowa to get out, get some offensive reps, work out some more kinks, throw the ball down the field. Last time I checked, Colorado State gives up on average about 366 yards a game. So that'll be great for us. They don't create turnovers. So I think this is an opportunity for us to really get some good reps in. I think Iowa easily covers the spread. I don't think we're going to have any problem with this game at all. It didn't take a whole lot I don't think any of us to really think that one through.
So something that dawned on me earlier, Todd, thinking about this too, Adam, was the fact, a couple of things. Number one, you look at probably the most successful teams under Kirk Ferentz. You probably think of 2002, 2009, 2015.
Yep.
Well, we had 7 years between the first 2, 6 years between the second 2. Well, guess what? 2015 to 2021. I don't know. 6 years. If that's the pattern. But then, secondly, is those teams that we view as as probably the best ones under Kirk Ferentz. They all had early season. 02 that you lose to Iowa State after having the halftime lead. 09, you have to have 2 blocked field goals against UNI to pull the game out in the end.
Yeah.
2015 there were some dogfights. You look at that Iowa State game, and I mean that first half looked really kind of meek, and then they came out and won it in the second, and then you have that 57-yard field goal by Marshall Kane to beat Pitt that season.
Yeah.
And ultimately, right now, look at it, folks. We've won handily 2 ranked teams, and then Kent State, who's a very tough out. From like you said, they're predicted to do well in the MAC, and I mean we're 3-0, and we've won each game really pretty handily. There hasn't been a lot of suspense to it. So I mean, you really compare this start to the starts that those previous great teams have had.
Yeah.
Things are looking pretty good right now, and this could really shape up to be a special season. But as you said, it's early, and let's see how things develop as we move forward. So
all those teams had really good defenses. Guess what?
Yep.
Here we are again.
Yeah. Just think if some more of the guys would have came back from last year, how good we would have been this year. And I say that every year.
Sargent would have been awesome to see on the field again.
Yeah, it would have been great, for him to come back, since, we've had Ivory Kelly Martin's had a tough time holding onto the ball early season, but hopefully he can work that out. And let's just remember, like, you can be critical of your team, it's that it's how it is, but let's not be unnecessarily overly critical. We're 3-0. We're number 5 in the country. Let's not forget who we are.
Two ranked teams and one handily. I mean, let's get a grip. Let's realize that it's a long season.
Yeah.
And hopefully attrition doesn't take its toll on us. But I mean, they're going to grow and get more cohesive as the year goes on.
The offense has looked better every game, better and better each game as you go forward too.
And that's Iowa football.
Better than the last.
Yeah, that's Iowa football. We get better throughout the season. One thing that we don't think of too, when we're getting on social media too and overly criticizing it, when we're in our different fan groups on Facebook, there's a lot of player parents that are in these groups too. So you want to think about what you're saying. If you're just letting the guys have it, there's a lot. That's some of those guys' kids, and so you want to remember that as well. And there's probably recruits that are paying attention to this. And, I know if I'm coming out of high school and I'm like, these guys are 3-0, number 5 in the country, and their fans are tearing them apart, I don't know if I want to play for that. So, I feel like for the most part, Iowa fans have always been super supportive, but when we went 2-0 this year, I think expectations kind of shot through the roof. So let's let's circle back the bus. And
I
let's,
came into the
let's
season fully like preparing myself to be 0-2 to start the year. So so I'm pleasantly surprised.
It could have happened easily, but we played well. We played great defense, and
they were ready. And I was really worried about how ready, because usually Kirk Ferentz' teams aren't ready in the first couple of games. But man, they played awesome.
We have a top 5 offense. We just don't have top 5 defense. We don't have a top 5 offense right now. But hopefully, if they can just be a top 25 offense, we're going to be good as gold. That's all we need. So moving on, we're going to just cover, typically on this show, we're going to cover the Big Ten games and usually Iowa State. So we'll move pretty quickly through this. Let's go. We got Iowa State. They are at Baylor. Iowa State's 2-1. Baylor's 3-0. And let's see here. We got Iowa State favored by 6 down in Waco. Jerry, what are you taking on that one?
Big 12, conference games, football on roller skates. I don't know what to expect. I mean, it's at Baylor, so I don't know. Based on past experience, I just have a hard time believing that line with Iowa State by 6. So, I don't know. It's really, I can go either way on this thing, but if I had to, I'd probably, I don't know. I like Baylor's chances at home.
Okay.
And again, once the Big 12 season hits, you don't know what to expect. You got explosive offenses, and Iowa State, though, they look like they maybe lit a spark last weekend, so maybe they come out and surprise too, and with a little bit different panache than what they've had so far this year.
All right, Matt, what do you think, Chief?
I'm going to take Iowa State on this one. I think that their defense is good enough to shut Baylor's offense down, and I think Brock Purdy's good enough to make enough happen on Baylor's defense to take.
Nice. I personally think Iowa State was extremely overrated going into the season. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're nearly as great as they were touted to be. I'm going to take Baylor in this one. Dave Aranda, the head coach at Baylor, I think is a wonderful football coach, and he's got them rolling right now. So they'll be in Waco. Down in Baylor, it's going to be a hot one down there. I'm going to take Baylor to cover that spread and at least beat Iowa State by a field goal is my pick here. Next one, we got to go ahead.
It might be 74-71 in Big 12 football, but we'll see what happens. So.
Yeah, you never know. Next, we got Rutgers. Surprisingly, both of these teams are kind of a surprise. They've looked really good so far. Rutgers with the fighting Greg Schiano's at 3-0, going against number 19 Michigan. 3-0 as well. This is in Ann Arbor. There was no point spread listed for this one yet, so we're just going to pick this one straight up. Matt, you going to take Rutgers, or are you going to take Michigan in this one?
Taking Michigan on this one. I think they've played well enough. They've had some really good tests and came out on top. Rutgers, I know they've played well, but I just don't know that they can take Michigan.
Matt's calling fool's gold on Rutgers. Jerry, what do you think?
Oh, I don't know if I'm calling fool's gold on Rutgers, but I mean, Michigan with the resources and the brand has an easier time of turning it around and trying to right the ship. Rutgers, it's going to be a little bit more of a lengthy process, but I don't know. It's been well documented. Harbaugh's got beaten Ohio State soul front and center. And so I don't know. I see at the big house, I see Michigan taking care of business on this one. So.
I'm going to agree with you guys on that one. I got Michigan on this one. I've read a lot about the Michigan football team this year, and a lot of writers close to the team are saying that with some of the assistant coaching changes, the culture there's changed. It's a lot lighter. Players are having a lot more fun. There's a swag about these guys right now, and they think that this might be the year they're going to knock down Ohio State. I would love to see that because I'm real sick and tired of Ohio State dominating the Big Ten. It'd be nice to see someone different come out of the East. Next one, we got our old boy Brett Bielema and the Illinois Fighting Illini at 1-2 at Purdue. 2-1 right now. The point spread is Purdue favored by 10 at Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette, Indiana. Matt and I have been to that beautiful town. I love tailgating there. Matt, what is your pick on this one? It's a fun place.
So are we talking covering the spreads, or are we talking straight up still, or were we at spread?
Covering the spread. The last one, there was no spread listed, so we just picked a winner.
Okay, so I think I'm going to have to go at West Lafayette. I'm going to have to keep it to Purdue. I think they're going to cover that. Brett Bielema's first year. Illinois played a couple. Their first game was good. They beat Nebraska, but I think that was just the first game of the season kind of glitches for Nebraska, and Purdue's gonna come out of. I don't know that Illinois has enough to stop Purdue's offense.
Yeah, they run that spread offense. They game plan against Iowa so well. We always struggle against Purdue.
It's terrible.
It's like Purdue and Northwestern of those games, and I'm like, wake up and figure it out, because they just match up against us, and their offense just gives us fits. Jerry, what are your thoughts on the Illinois-Purdue game?
It's pretty simple right now. To Matt's point, Bielema is in a rebuild. He's in year one. You don't count out Jeff Brom. I mean, as Hawkeye fans, we understand just how dangerous Purdue can be, and Brom's coaching and the ability. And, I like Purdue in this game just for the fact, I guess it's just the Jeff Brom factor. So,
yeah, last year they had their best player out. They had Jeff Brom out, and they still beat us. I'm like, okay, we got these guys. Their best player and their head coach is out. We still couldn't beat them. So, I mean, that's a sign of a good coach when you're not in there and your team can still flow like that. But did you realize he's making like $7 million a year? I read that the other day. He's one of the highest paid coaches in the country. Like, if you're making that much money, like, you better be putting out some results and making some bowl games at least.
Louisville tried to lure him back a couple years ago, and Purdue ponied up to keep him. But, to your point, though, too, losing to Purdue, again, go back to my previous comments, we're trying to throw the ball 40 to 50 times against them. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if you credit Purdue so much for that or our game plan, but,
I would love
I digress.
I still want answers from that. I love Brian Ferentz, and I think he's a wonderful person and a good offensive coordinator. But what? And I got to get off that. But what the hell?
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, it wasn't like it was a blowout. I mean, and we had to. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, we could talk and gripe about that all day. I know I could. The next.
It's not going to change the outcome, no matter how long we talk about it. So moving right along.
Next one, we got the Kent State Golden Flashes, who we just recently played 1-2 at Maryland, who is 3-0, point spread favoring Maryland by 14.5 in College Park, Maryland. Matt and I have been there. Not a fan of that environment whatsoever, or the tailgating, or the bar scene. They gets 2 thumbs down on this side. Matt, what's your thoughts on the outcome of this game?
It's a tough one. Maryland's offense has sputtered, and Kent State's defense is really good. So it could be a long day in Maryland if that offense is sputtering. I mean, my gut's telling me to take Kent State on this one. I don't know how Maryland's going to come out, I guess. There's a question mark. I could see them getting it together and pulling this one off, but Kent State's no joke.
No, they're solid. So Matt's saying that Maryland's not going to cover the spread of 14.5.
They may win it, but I don't know it's going to be by 14.5. I'll take Kent State for with a over 2 touchdown spread. Absolutely.
Jerry, what do you think?
They're kind of along that same lines. I mean, it's in Maryland. Maryland's playing some, they're playing some decent ball to start. I mean, they made some good first impressions, but again, we're only 3 games into the season. And, do I think Maryland probably pulls us out? Yeah, but I still have a hard time believing in the 14.5 point spread on this thing, even if they are at home. Yeah. And, hey, basically if they do, if they pull it out, it's just another step in showing that Maryland maybe is a little bit more for real than what the average fan thinks. So
I know when I look at the spreads every week, there's 1 or 2 games that jump off the page at me where I'm like, okay, that's easy money. And this is one of them for me. Not only am I going to pick Maryland to not get to hit that spread, I'm picking Kent State to win and upset the Maryland Terrapins. I think that Maryland is not as good as people are thinking. They're getting a lot of credit, a lot of positive talk right now. I think they've improved, definitely, and they are moving in the right direction. They got an upgrade at quarterback there, but I've seen both teams play, and I'm very impressed with Kent State. I think Kent State blows up that spread and actually wins this game. So,
I agree.
Right. Yeah, well, it's because you're a smart guy. Just kidding. All right, next one up, we have our favorite team in the country, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, sitting at 2-2. going to Sparty, Michigan State, 3-0 right now. Another team, Mel Tucker, people are getting real fired up about these guys. It's just another one of those teams that looked like absolute hot garbage last season and have come out this year and looked a lot better. We got a spread of Michigan State favored in this one by 3.5, and it's at Spartan Stadium in East Lansing, Michigan, where been to that location as well. Stayed in the nastiest hotel I've stayed in my whole life.
It was bad.
Had to take a flea bath afterwards. It was not good. But hey, when you're on a football trip, you just sleep in the room. You're out doing other stuff the whole other time, so it's okay. Jerry, what do you think on this one? Michigan State favored by 3.5 over Nebraska.
I guess looking at this, you and I have had these discussions, and Maddie's been involved in some of these too, where it's, it's good for the Big Ten and it's good for college football if Nebraska's good. We don't want to admit it. We never want to lose to them again. But, it's just for the Big Ten's sake, you want a good Nebraska is a good brand. But Michigan State by 3.5 at home. I mean, that's basically saying it's a pick 'em because, a home game basically gives them that 3 points. And that's what I know. Nebraska came within 7 of Oklahoma, but heck, Oklahoma dropped in the AP by only beating them by 7. They dropped a spot this week.
Yeah.
And so I just don't know. Nebraska's Nebraska, and that's not a knock. It's just Scott Frost has got to show something. So I would have to go with Michigan State on this one until Frost proves me wrong.
And Matt, Mel Tucker, I don't know how many people have really covered this, but he really probably was the biggest winner in the transfer portal, brought in a lot of really good players to upgrade that team right away so he could win a lot quicker. And that's been a big key to their success for this year. Matt, who do you got in this one, Michigan State or Nebraska?
I think Nebraska gave it all she had against Oklahoma, and that's not how they're going to play the rest of the year. I think Michigan State is going to prevail. They're going to easily cover 3.5. Michigan State, from what I've seen, is a pretty good ball club early on, like you just said, and Nebraska is going to turn the ball over like they always do, and it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think that Nebraska, not just under Scott Frost, but over the last few coaching regimes, have lacked toughness. And I feel like this Michigan State team's going to punch them in the mouth. They're going to see adversity. It's going to be on the road. And I just don't think they're going to be able to handle it. I think Michigan State covers and wins this ball game. And I think they win by more than just 3.5 points. I think they're going to at least, maybe win by a couple touchdowns, in my guess. So I think that's a good bet for Michigan State, in my opinion. Up next, we have the Akron Zips, 1-2 against Ohio State, number 10 in the country, 2-1. Now listen to the spread on this one. Ohio State's favored by 49 points. That's insane. In Columbus, Ohio, Maddie, who do you got in this one?
That's a lot of points.
49 points. Like that's a lot.
A lot of points.
And Akron's bad, but like Ohio State doesn't have a very good defense, but their offense is really good. Their quarterback makes mistakes, isn't super accurate with the ball, but they are very explosive. 49 points, that's a big spread.
I'm thinking Ohio State's not going to cover that spread. I mean, I know Ohio State's going to win, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's almost by 50 points. Is
that's
Akron
a lot.
really that bad in college football? I mean,
they're pretty.
I know it's Ohio State, and I know
they're
it's
pretty bad.
But man, that's a lot of points.
Yeah,
I mean, just by what I'm seeing, I got to take the Zippers to win off the spread side. Obviously, Ohio State's going to win the game.
The old fighting Zippers.
The old fighting Zips.
All right, Jerry, what do you think on this one? What do you think, Jerry?
Oh, I'm taking Ohio State. Ohio State's wanting to right the ship. They, after losing to Oregon, 49 points is, it looks like a lot of points, but I mean, it's a 56-7 or a 63-10, really out of the realm of possibilities. No, yeah. I'm going with Ohio State to right the ship and try to
horn it on.
Erase some ghosts from a couple weeks ago.
I agree with Jerry. I'm going to go with Ohio State in this one. I think covering that spread is going to be a little tight. It's a lot of points, but Akron's not very good this year, and Ohio State can put up a lot of points pretty quick. I see Ohio State turning the ball over a couple times, getting careless with some passes, but they're going to be explosive, and they're going to cover that spread and win the game. Moving on, we have Indiana sitting at 1-2, which I don't think any of us expected at the beginning of the year. Kind of thought this would be their year. At Western Kentucky, I thought it was kind of odd they're doing a home and home with Western Kentucky. Let's see here. So Indiana's favored by 10 in this one at Western Kentucky. Jerry, who do you got in this one?
That's a tough one. I don't know a whole lot about Western Kentucky.
I don't think anybody does.
My gut says Indiana. The Indiana by 10, I could see them pulling it out. But, Indiana's in that sophomore slump season, and, I don't know. Anything can happen. But if it was my own $1.50 I was putting on this, I'd probably go with Indiana on the points.
What about you, Matt?
I'd have to agree. I know Penix has turned the ball over quite a bit, but I'm not against Western Kentucky. I don't see it. I think they cover that spread.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they'll cover it pretty handily. Moving on, I didn't even realize they could play football at the Division I level. The Villanova Wildcats, basketball school taking on Penn State. There was no spread listed for this one, so we'll just skip over that one. I think everyone thinks Penn State's going to win that one pretty handily, so not a worry on that one. One of the more entertaining games on the schedule that I'm really looking forward to watching, we have number 12 Notre Dame 3-0 against number 18 Wisconsin 1-1. I think that's going to be a slugfest. They got Wisconsin favored by 6.5. The game is at a neutral site at Soldier Field in Chicago, which will be cool. I saw the Hawks play Northern Illinois there back in the dark days of Jake Christensen. So was able to take in a game there. It was quite a bit of fun. So with Wisconsin favored at 6.5, Matt, who are you taking in that one?
Oh man, that's a tough one. You're right. It's going to be a slugfest. Wisconsin 6.5. Man, I'm going to take. I think I'm going to take Wisconsin on that. I haven't seen anything spectacular from Notre Dame this season. They came in highly ranked and haven't really proved themselves. Wisconsin got I know they lost to Penn State early on, but that's a tough Penn State team, and Wisconsin pretty much lost it themselves. They beat themselves. They had that game. They could have won it. So I'm going to take Wisconsin.
All right. What about you, Jerry?
Well, I think there's a couple interesting facts here, just like Matt just mentioned. Wisconsin on that Penn State game, and again, like we talked about earlier, they can't go back and change it, but it seemed like they did a lot to beat themselves that Penn State game. But so do you have that factor coming in again in a big matchup in a neutral field at Soldier Field? But ultimately, too, I think what gets lost is Jack Cohn now quarterbacks at Notre Dame, the former Wisconsin quarterback. Kind of this transfer portal is lending a little bit of a free agency aspect to this whole thing. So, you got a quarterback now for Notre Dame that's familiar with the Wisconsin system. Sure, they've probably changed it up and they've got new schemes, but I don't know. I guess on that factor, I kind of think too, with a little bit of a knowledge of everything going on, I kind of start favoring Notre Dame in this. As far as from that aspect. So,
all right. I'm definitely, I've watched both these teams play this year and read up on both of them quite a bit. I'm going to go with Wisconsin on this one. I think Notre Dame has not looked good their first 3 games of the year. They've struggled with some not so great opponents, and they just have not looked very fluent out there on the field as of yet. They're not going to have that luxury to take a whole half of football to start playing. Wisconsin is going to come out and play Wisconsin football. They're a lot like Iowa. They're very steady. They're going to hit you in the mouth, and you might know what they're going to do, but they're going to do it well, and they're going to make it hard to stop. I got Wisconsin covering and winning this game by, say, I'm guessing at least 10 points, in my opinion. It's not going to be a big game. I'm guessing something like a 20-10 ball game. It's not going to be a real high scoring one there.
There's not going to be a lot of possessions, I don't think, in that game, just the way Wisconsin plays. So Notre Dame's going to have to take advantage of every possession that they get, and I just don't think that they're going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Adam, I got to take one exception with you though, because the one thing I'll always remember about Jake Christensen though is what a great teammate he was when Stanzi came in as a starter.
That's true.
And, he was a team player, and he supported and said all the right things no matter how angry he got. So, and he transferred out, and so I know his statistics didn't show much during the game, but I still kind of give him a few points at least for being the consummate teammate on as the way circumstances rolled out. So
yeah, and I Ricky's one of those guys. I don't think he has a negative thing to say about anybody. He's a pretty positive person and really good. And Jake very much so as a person, is probably a wonderful guy and a really great dude. He just did not really have a lot of success at the University of Iowa, which is unfortunate.
That whole class is another podcast episode in itself, so I digress. But anyway, I just wanted to note that as far as my own personal feelings.
Yeah. So. All right, and then the very last one we have is the University of Ohio at Northwestern. Two not good football teams going at it. Northwestern sitting at 1-2 right now. The game as a sleepy Ryan Field in Evanston, Illinois. You go in there, you just want to take a nap.
Did you hear the news though today? The Ryan family donated they've offered $480 million towards the renovation of Ryan Field.
What took them so long?
I don't know. It's part of an ongoing, but I mean that field, I guess from what I understand, you've been there, but from what I understand, that's kind of the last piece of the whole for Northwestern as far as the putting the parts together for the facilities. So that was kind of a big announcement. I think there's a bigger billions of dollars goal that they're aiming for, but still that was a big announcement. At least I saw on the Big Ten Network today.
Well, that puts them halfway there to a billion.
Well, I think it was multiple billions, but I don't want to quote, but I'm pretty sure it was about $480 million that the Ryan family.
It's probably going to take multiple billions to upgrade that field. Is so far behind.
It's a dump, but their practice facility is amazing. One of the best.
Valley in Des Moines is probably a better stadium than Ryan Field.
I've been to both, and it is. Valley High School Stadium's nicer than Northwestern, which is sad. You're a Big Ten school. You're one of the top academic institutions in the country, probably the #1 journalism school in the country, and that field doesn't look like it's seen any TLC in about 40 years. So, we move on though. Quit, bashing on Northwestern. It is. We've been there. We didn't enjoy it very much. Not a lot of fun. We got Northwestern favored by 15.5. Jerry, who do you got on that one?
I'd take a Northwestern as well. The home field, Big Ten. I think the factors are there that they can cover that spread. I mean, personally. So
yeah. And this year, Matt, going into it, Ohio. I think normally if Northwestern was this bad, I'd go with Ohio, but Ohio is really bad this year. They've struggled with Frank Solich retiring and moving on. Again, Northwestern favored by 15.5. Who do you got in this one?
Yeah, I'm with you guys on this. I'm going Northwestern just because Ohio is real bad.
Yeah, they're struggling. I agree with you guys. Going to take Northwestern in this one. Congratulations to Northwestern. I mean, to tie into that, I think Pat Fitzgerald is one of the best coaches in the country. To be able to win like he has and do what he's done at Northwestern, if I'm an NFL team, I'm doing everything I can to lure that guy in. I think he, in my personal opinion, is one of the best coaches in the country.
He's got Kirk Ferentz' number. There's no question there.
He very much
There's
does.
Nothing bad anyone can say about Pat Fitzgerald. He does it the right way, and he always wins football games.
This is true. Well, boys, we ran a little long on time today. We're not typically planning to go this long on the Swarm the 402 podcast. We did a little introductory episode where everyone kind of talked about their fandom and got everyone to get to know us a little bit. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we'll be back within the next week or two with another episode. But, guys, I appreciate you guys coming on. I had a lot of fun with you, and hopefully the Hawks can take care of business this weekend against Colorado State.
All right.
Absolutely. Go Hawks.
All right, guys. Go Hawks.